Hi guys, this is going to be my review of Vanquished Horrible Night by Dawnbreaker. Now I want to set this up into 4 different categories. So the first category is going to be talking about the album as a whole in a general sense. Next I want to talk about his writing style, how he writes the music. Finally I want to talk about some specific songs, some specifics for the album. So first of all, Dawnbreaker always wanted to do a sort of symphonic black metal album, and when he found out that this was a little bit more popular in the Christian metal scene, in the Christian black metal scene, he decided to go for it. He kind of wanted the keys to really make more of a lead role in this album rather than his previous albums, so he wanted the keys to really shine here. Thematically, he really wanted some true Christian doctrine in his album release, but he wanted to do it in a sort of medieval fantasy type of style, almost like a fantasy video game sort of thing. There is this sort of theme surrounding this album, which is that it's about a character who is called by the Pope to wage spiritual warfare on a plague, which is really an interesting concept, especially when you consider the whole medieval fantasy route he went with. Now, I asked him what denomination he considers himself, and that's not really important. What he did say is that he's making this music for Christians, so it's an encouragement to Christians, this album. So that's more or less the theme of the overall album. Let's get into the actual writing process, shall we? He often starts with a riff of some sort, and then he just sort of lets it marinate for a while. He then often thinks about similar moods in other music written by other people. He then might add to it or change it or even improv it at last minute. He says he records pretty much anything that seems like it's even close to being complete, so I imagine that he has a lot of stuff recorded that is just lying around waiting to be used. Some of the songs on this album come from strictly just from keyboard. He just wrote stuff on keyboard, and he didn't even pick up the guitar before he had the whole song written, so that's interesting too. Now, I asked him how he sees the music, and he said a lot of people see colors when they come up with their material. He says for him he sees shapes, he sees moving shapes, but he says more than anything he really sees moods of the music. He actually recorded this during the lockdown period in Manhattan, New York, and he spent many long nights praying over his community in that process. Now let's talk a little bit about the songs behind this album. Now his personal favorite songs off this album are Evil's Bane, Bridge Between Worlds, and Lady of the Snows. That said, there's kind of an interesting story behind the first song he wrote, which is Torment of Anti-Christian Souls. Now in this song, what actually happened is he was out without power due to Hurricane Sandy when he was living in Jersey Shore, and he was just without power for like over a week. So what he did was he actually got some batteries and put them in a Yamaha keyboard, and they just started writing, and this is more or less what came out of it. Now, he really reached back into the wardrobe with some of these songs that are on the album, as he drew from songs from 2012, 2014, 2016, and some songs that are recent from 2019, 2020. Since he was really trying to make a symphonic black metal album, he really was thinking about all those songs that he wrote that were with keyboards, so that's kind of where that came from. Finally, the clean vocals on Evil's Bane come from Brian Garwoski, who is Dawnbreaker's voice engineer and friend of the band. Let's move on to the categories, shall we? So for the rhythm and weight of the notes, this is an excellent category. He really does a good job here. The rhythm is nuanced, moving up and down, and the notes are in true black metal fashion with a lot of scale work mixed in. I think this is a really unique listening experience. I think this is partially due to the keys being involved in such a strong way. Now, the keys create a lot of atmosphere in the music. You don't really notice the keys that much on subsequent listens until you get to the point that you realize that this would really sound naked without the keys in it. I would say with the addition of the keys and the scale work that is done on the guitar in this thing, it makes for a very unique listening experience. This is combined with the writing structure of the songs, but I'll get to that later. The vocals are very climaxing in nature, and the presentation of the vocals is just really on point. Winding up this category, there's a lot of cool solos in this thing, and it makes for a great listening experience. Excellent category, 2.4 out of 2.5. Moving on to the notes in light of the depth. This is another good category, strong showing here. Everything fits together so tightly in this thing, including the music and the vocals and the keys. Everything just really coincides really well in this thing. As I said earlier, Dawnbreaker really tries to focus on moods. And if it was more than one guy working on this, I don't know if it would quite have the same sort of unity within the whole feel of the music as a mood. Now, the keys are really quite diverse in this thing. Sometimes it just sounds like a piano, sometimes it sounds like just staying notes, and other times it's both at the same time. I think the fact that he wrote most of these songs with the keyboard in mind really brings that medieval feel to the music. Songs like Plague Hunters really establish this sort of mood that he's going for with this medieval fantasy feel, and he just does a wonderful job with that. I also appreciate that he follows a more traditional writing style in this that is maybe not necessarily super common in black metal, especially lo-fi black metal. This isn't a lo-fi black metal album, but it still follows a certain structure, which is verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, that sort of thing. And I really appreciate this. So overall, well above average in that category that I would say is, really good. Would put it at a 2.2 out of 2.5. Now, in terms of the depth and light of the listenability, this is very listenable to me, and it's kind of like right in line with the kind of listenability that I like, which is a little bit unpredictable in some respects. But if you like more predictable music, like pop music, then you're probably not going to like this as much. Overall, with the complexity of the music, the scale work in this really makes this very listenable. The scales are not necessarily common scales, but they are listenable based on them being scales and him working up and down the fretboard, so to speak. Also, because the lyrics are more scriptural based and storytelling in nature, that this also makes it very listenable as well. Now, I do want to point out that there is some sort of contrast between the keys and the guitar. The keys are actually quite subtle, and the guitar is a lot more striking. It's a lot more in your face. You can hear every note. You know exactly what every part of the guitar is playing. So overall, with the complexity, not everybody's going to like this, but I personally love it. So overall, I'm going to give this a 1.8 out of 2.5, above average. Now, in terms of the listenability in light of the rhythm, some people are not going to like that there's tempo changes in this and that sort of thing. Well, I don't know. Too bad, it's in there. And I personally really appreciate that he does this in the music. Now, in the drums, there is quite a few repeat patterns and playing in this. And I think if it was a little bit more diverse, if it was mixed up a little bit more, it would get a little bit higher rating. But as it is, it's pretty good. But I mean, this type of playing of the drums is actually very common for black metal and death metal, actually. So if the drums were different, it might be not as much black metal. So there's that too. So for this category, I'm going to rate it at a 1.9 out of 2.5. Very high rating. So overall, that's going to put it at an 8.3. Very strong showing here. Finally, I just wanted to mention that I think this is his best release yet. He seems to improve on every release. I actually rated Total Depravity higher than this, but that was because I have since reconfigured my rating system, so I'm not giving as high a ratings. I'm really allowing for a high ceiling with this. So guys, that was my review for Vanquished Horrible Night. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.